Mr. Suresh Devada, President Club, and executive members, let me extend you a very warm welcome. As you know, today we are honored by the presence of Dr. Anil Kapotkar ji. This is in fact the third chapter in our lecture series. We have not been very consistent, and the credit for that goes entirely to me, but our president had been more or less very supportive. We have always, more than the number, quantity, we have always looked for quality. As we started way back, almost 2-3 years back, just to give you a brief history, our first lecture was by Professor M. S. Swaminathan ji, who after 2611, post 2611, spoke about hunger and internal security. Our second lecture was by Dr. Rajendra Singh, the Magsaysay Award winner, known as Waterman of India. He spoke on Dhatakta, Brahmand और मौसम के बदलते मिजाज. This is third in the series. Let me request Mr. Suresh Devada, President, to come to welcome Dr. Sir. Suresh ji, can you just brief us about the latest activities of CORP?
Good evening, Dr. Kapotkar, friends. I'll speak briefly about Karm. Karm is an NGO we started in 1986, and for more than 2 decades we were working in the urban area of Bombay on the program of health and education. We have been organizing eye camps, we have been organizing reduction in school dropouts, tuberculosis camps, and many other activities. Then we have a pathology diagnostic center near Dhobi Talab, where we provide all the diagnostic possible at the cheapest possible. It's on a cost basis, no plus on it, only cost at the cheapest possible rates to the citizens of Mumbai. There is no discrimination between a poor man or a rich man coming over there. And about 4-5 years back, we had thought why we should not venture to the rural India. Hence we went to a place called Shahpur, Taluka in Thane district, where we cover people and we work with the tribals and other people, developing sustainable development of women and the villages. We have support of about more than 500 self-help groups over there. We have our sewing classes where we teach these women how to sew clothes and other things. They make beautiful articles which we help them selling it. We have other activities like water retention over there because it's a water scarcity zone. So we try to help them building small dams, check dams, sustainable income generation program is done over there with them. And every year for last 3 years we are organizing a show called on the International Women's Day, which is going to be next week on the 8th. We have it on a Saturday before that, where all the tribal women, they come, they participate, we give them a platform, they exhibit their products and they have a field day over there and they enjoy it. With this I say thank you to you and again welcome.
Thank you, Suresh ji. It's rather very easy, Atithi Devo Bhava, to welcome everybody, Bhagwan Dhanake, but it's a very difficult and daunting task for a non-technical man to give a brief. Though Sab doesn't need any introduction about a man who has shaped the destiny, I would say technical destiny of this country. So some can be critical of this also, a person of my caliber, how I have been given the chance to introduce Dr. Kapotkar, and it can be quite critical, but I think a solace in a fact that Dr. Kapotkar belongs to that area. In that domain, when things go critical, that is an achievement. So I think I will, under that shadow, when things go critical in nuclear energy, that becomes a very big achievement. So I can take little liberty, and there are so many things which one can talk about also, but to very brief introduction which I can say is that conducted by I would say, he became director of BARC in 1996, and within 4 years, from 2000 to 2009, he had been chairman of Atomic Energy Commission. In these almost, I would say, 14 years of his very active role while he had it, though he has been from BGTIA, and he is one of the few very first batches of BARC that he comes from. And he took the legacy of, I would say, what Bhabha started long back further ahead, giving it a different direction, giving it different dimension, I would say. And fortunately, I have been somehow been interactive in these areas where he had been leading the country for last 3-4 years, and there are so many things which I came to know. I would say that undated by the restrictions imposed by international community, he was responsible for in succeeding in developing various systems on pressurized heavy water reactors. Dhruva reactor being one of them, he conceptualized them and initiated, and somehow he was the man behind it. Then he was responsible for the rehabilitation of Chennai Atomic Power Station, both units, first and two, which were at one stage at the time, almost at the verge of being written off. I would say also that in the development of the advanced heavy water reactors, he has played a role which in the coming times is going to play a remarkable example. Whatever the challenges in future we are going to face, whatever direction he has given in the development of and conceptualization of basically, I would say, advanced heavy water reactors, he is the man responsible for that. Some of us in the, I would say, in the audience were not even born in 1974 when India held its first nuclear test. In the second test was held in 1998 at Pokhran, and Dr. Kapotkar had played a very key role in both the tests, from in 74 also and 98 also. His sterling leadership led to a significant boost in India's nuclear power program, though we were having problems in uranium supply at that time. He is the man who helped us to use thorium, how to use thorium basically, made it. And under his leadership, we can say that India definitely achieved the status of, we can say, an advanced nuclear power or nuclear country. On the other sides also, basically, we are still 120, we can say we are 120 crore plus, but in certain areas there is a lack of human resource, and that is the area which has also not been ignored by Dr. He has been instrumental in starting the National Institute of Science, Education and Research in Bhubaneswar, and also DAE, Department of Atomic Energy, and Mumbai University has started an institute. I have been involved in that for some time. I think 6 years it is now in the wing. NISER, the institute I mentioned about, they held an national competition, 12 past students, and they are then put into basically fundamental science research. And I can vouch that the first batch at least, it is a step where the students coming out of that institute are pursuing research in only basic sciences, and there have been examples of that. It has been functioning for last 5-6 years from a prefab structure, but within 2 months' time, it is going to be shifted to a very beautiful, magnificent building in campus only, and that was initiated by Dr. Anil Kapotkar. And also there is another Homi Bhabha National Institute, and we hope, and I think there is going to be distinct examples in the coming time that the fresh talent coming out of these institutes is going to take further whatever these legends have started. Other than this, Dr. has also been involved in the revival and I would say giving a new shape to IITs and NITs, basically how to use how to make optimum use of solar energy, then enhance in excellence in higher and technical education and science and technology based development in Maharashtra. These are all highly technical areas, but also his contributions have been which have far-reaching consequences and which are going to touch the very basic life of day-to-day life of the ordinary people. And I would put myself in one, because My job takes me all over the country. I travel a lot in the railways, and recently it also headed a committee which reviewed the safety in Indian railways. That is a different dimension of his activities. So thanks for coming all the way, and let's go into the topic. I will like to invite Rosa. You can go ahead.
When I was asked to come here and talk, I thought this is a good opportunity for me to talk about India's energy quest, and I of late have started doing it not from present to future, but from future to present. And I want to deliberately do that because while present is of course very important, you have to live in present, but you have to also worry about not just our future but future of subsequent generations. And in so doing, we do expect and wish that the quality of life that Indians enjoy, the one measure of that is the Human Development Index. So restated, the Human Development Index in India that we should have should be comparable to the best in the world. We are far away from that at this moment, but that should be our goal, and if you want to reach there, we want to achieve that goal, then there are several things, but in the energy context, what is it that one should be looking forward to? So that's broadly the theme I'm going to talk. Just to introduce the subject, the Human Development Index, which I talked about, it is it's very closely related to the electricity consumption, and particularly in the early part of this curve, that is this part of the graph. And you would find that as you keep increasing the energy supply, you would have a very sharp rise in the Human Development Index. We are somewhere around this region today. On the other hand, the advanced countries, the so-called rich countries, developed countries, you notice their Human Development Index is very close to 1. They may have different levels of energy use, but they all have crossed the threshold where they have Human Development Index close to 1. So the simple message that one can derive out of a data set of this kind is that while one can argue how much energy you require if you are in this domain, because the Human Development Index is more or less the same, but in this domain I think there is a strong argument for increasing the electricity supply, and we should aim at reaching somewhere around this island or somewhere around 5,000 kilowatt hour per capita per year. Now that is the statement of the problem which we need to answer. Now there is a scatter around this I had deliberately not drawn a graph through this line because then one may question, you should have shifted the line little this way, little that way, although there is a statistical method of curve fitting, but I think you can all visualize the shape of that curve in your own mind without really worrying about too details. And but that scatter also, it's this graph is in the context of countries. Each point there is one country. I can draw a similar graph by using a point, say individual states in India, I can put Maharashtra as one dot, Goa as one dot, Uttar Pradesh as another dot, Bihar as third dot, and I'll get a very similar curve. I can also draw, different segments of society described in different ways and plot the same curve. You will get same curve. It is, it's the relationship between the inputs that go in improving the quality of life, and up to a point you have that improvement. Beyond that, it saturates. For example, in India, if you look at it by states, Goa has maximum per capita electricity consumption. Bihar has minimum, and the average is around 780. The short point again is, while there are variations, while one can argue, people argue about philosophy of life, lifestyles, why you want so much of energy, and all those are important arguments. But recognizing that we live in a connected society, recognizing that the world is a global village, if something happens, aspirations travel. I cannot say that I will live on a on let's say a very meager income when the world is living differently. Maybe if I succeed, surely I will have a problem convincing my children. Even if they succeed, they will have problem convincing their children, because I think we get influenced by each other, and that's a fact that we should recognize.